I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the leadership journey of our guest and what unique traits bring them to be the leader they are today. Who knows what we're going to discover together, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm absolutely chuffed to bits to have Finlay McArthur with us this week, friend and colleague in the coaching workspace. Welcome, Finlay.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited about what we might end up talking about today, because I know you've got a really interesting and humorous approach to life, which I absolutely love and keeps me entertained on a daily basis, shall I say.
I'm glad it does. Thank you.
So before we dig into your leadership journey, as we always do with our guests on their first episode with us, Finn, I'm just going to share with the listeners a little bit about who you are and your experience here, and do feel free to chip in, of course, but it will come out when you start to tell your story as well. So Finn's coming with over 30 years of corporate experience, mainly within the aviation industry, working at senior board level as an executive. And this is fascinating. Managing Oman Airport Authority redevelopment, part of a four-man team. We may get to hear more about that, folks, shortly. And so many more sort of experiences in that aviation space. So I won't go too much into that. But as a coach and a therapist, Finlay's bringing 15 years of experience in coaching and psychotherapy, a level 7 qualified coach and mentor, a cognitive hypnotherapist, so I better be careful today, and an NLP master practitioner, as well as a Reiki practitioner. So, goodness me, there is so much in there, Finn, that we can dig into today and get to know in your story as you share that with us.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's all I can say is about hypnotherapy. Just don't look in the eyes, okay? Look everywhere, but just don't look in the eyes. Okay.
I was going to say, what was it? Little Britain. Don't look around my eyes. Look straight into my eyes. Don't look around my eyes. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, they did wonders for the hypnotherapy career, but
didn't they just? Yeah. Yeah, if anyone who of my overseas listeners, because we love to boast that this is a global podcast, don't ever watch Little Britain. It's not representative of who we are.
No.
But
not at
does
all.
Bring a giggle.
Totally cool.
Well, it's fantastic agreeing to chat to me today and for the next couple of episodes. Let's see if you want to come back after this first one, shall we?
Yeah, we won't rush into things. We'll just see how we go to the first one, and then take it from there.
Steady as she goes. I like that approach.
Exactly.
Jolly good. All right, well, I know that listeners are as curious as me, Finn, to understand your leadership journey and what's brought you to the Finn you are today in front of us. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Gosh, when you very kindly approached me about this, it was where do I start? And like the famous song, start at the beginning, because it's a very good place to be. So I think really my leadership, I know my leadership style, where it came from, is my father during the Second World War was in the Royal Artillery. And at the end of the war, he went into the training wing before he left and started working as an engineer in aviation. But what he brought out the army with him was this can-do attitude.
Yeah.
At a very early age, I'm talking about 14 years of age, he taught me and my brother, who was a little bit older than me, how to do things like clean, sew, cook, iron. From 14 years on, I think I was ironing my own shirts, but it was great because it gave me that that discipline, but it also gave me that style of what a leader, or the qualities a leader should bring to any role that they're in. So from a very early age, I had that discipline with regards to, I think it's my father's, as a training background with regards to how he worked with officers, as well as ordinary soldiers when he was in the training wing, and how he approached it, the style that he brought, and it's still that discipline as well. I think that again made me who I was in those younger days, because when I was growing up in the 70s, it was like it was now. There's more of a free spirit, etc. But I think that I wouldn't say that training, but certainly that knowledge that he imparted in me and my brother at an early age, I said, really had that grounding for a leader. And it's that team spirit, I think, that which he also brought in as well, because sometimes when I'd be doing something, I'd be struggling, he would come along and say, right, let's have a look at this together. What do we need to do? Let's have a look at it. And it was his approach. It was sometimes quite regimented, but hey, that was him, bless him. But that really did give me an insight into what a leader is. So it's really, I think, that army training that my father had, and certainly the training he was imparting on to others that was coming through the ranks, that gave me that grounding of what was important, I think, within leadership. So when I left school and started work, it was very much in those days, you start doing the filing and work your way up, which is fine. It's good. It gave you that grounding. But very early on, I started looking around at the people I was reporting to, and the management, and some were good, some were bad. But I started from early age, and I was sort of 16, looking at what was a good style of management, what wasn't, the effect it was having on staff, the effect it was having on me. And sometimes I go back home and sit down with Dad over a cup of coffee or something, and just discuss the day, and just say, well, Dad, what do you think about this? And what do you think about, how would you do this, and how would you do that? And so he was a very strong force in my early career, in my early life, about what leadership is, what it is, and how you manage yourself. And I think from that early inspiring talks that I used to have with him, and the way that we were brought up, that gave me that deep foundation of leadership, and how management should be conducting themselves with staff and with themselves. So I think it definitely, and that's even today, some years on, I won't say how many, but a few years on from that,
only a couple.
Yeah, only a couple. Yeah, we're not talking 50 years at all here. But when I look back now, even the things I do now, it's still got that essence of discipline, looking at things from different angles, understanding what needs doing, how it can affect others, what others' approaches are, their input, and it's still to this day is still that leading light, let's call it, of how I do and how I used to manage people in my career.
Oh, I love that idea of your dad helping you lay that foundation of leadership. And that's something that I work a lot with my clients in terms of, you've got to get the foundations right before you can start building up the things on top of that for what you want to achieve. So you're definitely singing to my same hymn sheet, if you like, Finn.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, there's so many. It was someone on television, and it might have been an Alan Sugar. I can't remember. Forgive me if it wasn't. But how important it is to get a grounding in anything that you do, and it's that grounding, the foundations of a great career, or great management, or leadership, or whatever it is that you're doing. But you have to lay those foundations first, because if you don't, everything else is just going to crumble. And I was just so fortunate to have a wonderful dad, bless him, that gave me that, myself and my brother, that we built up from there. So not forgetting my sister, of course, but it's a typical family. I think sister sort of was a little bit rebelled a little bit against the discipline, but certainly my brother and I took that on board, and I think it's for our career anyway. It forged those solid foundations, which are still evident today.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what have those foundations now then helped you achieve since then? I mean, when I introduced you, I just shared a couple of top lines of the sorts of things that you've kind of you achieved over time, but tell us a little bit more about how that story unfolds post those early days with your dad.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, when I became a leader, and it was quite early on in my career, I was very, very fortunate to keep my nose clean, work hard, and very early on, I was sort of given a task on my first leadership role, and it was a little bit of a baptism of fire, because we're looking sort of early 80s, and there certainly weren't the courses and webinars, or certainly weren't webinars, but certainly classroom training wasn't as an abundance then as it was now. So it really was a baptism of fire. And I really felt that I was sort of thrown into the deep end. But as soon I learned you had to sink or swim in order to learn, to develop. And of course, you're managing suddenly people who are looking at you for leadership and that forward momentum for the organization. So it was what my father installed in me at that particular time about leadership, what it was and what it wasn't. And it certainly wasn't. And all through my career, even today, it's not a case of me standing back pushing people forward. It's a case of either leading from the front, or certainly being at the front, and all moving forward together. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to lose the respect. And it's all about, for me, for respect for my staff, and for the staff to respect me as well. Because if you've got that collaboration, then anything's possible. Not only that, when we're looking at projects or on a day-to-day basis, it's my style to go and sit down, have a coffee with them, have a chat, go out to lunch, go out on a Friday evening on the way home for a quick glass of wine or whatever it is, because it's that leadership. Now, at the same time, I get there has to be a line. You're the leader. Staff look up to you for certain areas, but that's fine, because when everyone knows where that line is, then that's great, because we can work towards it. And I think these days, when you don't know where that line is, and it's a fuzzy line, then that's where things become a little bit confused and a little bit contrived. So it was very much that grounding which I took with me, and that's why I still use it to today, with regards to staff are part of you. You're a part of them, so you have to understand them. And it's taking that time also, Paula, to understand each individual staff member. And I'm not talking a CEO with 3,000 employees, because you will have managers that will manage them. But my direct reports, that's all I'm interested in. And if it's 5 or 50, you have to take that time to understand each one, get to know them, they get to know you, and it's all about that collaborative relationship that you got to have. So it's all about, I would never get someone to do something that I would either do first or haven't done in the past. And if someone's struggling, well, then fine, we fall back, we have a look at it, we analyze it, just as I did with my dad, see what's working, what isn't working, put it right, and then move forward. But no one fails in my team, and all the teams that I've worked in, we just find ways that didn't work, so we find ways that do work. And that goes with how people work, how people are, from diverse cultures and different areas within. I mean, for an example, in my latter career before leaving aviation, I had a small team, and we were such a diverse team. You know, I had. We used to laugh. We used to call ourselves United Nations team because there was me, you know, Scottish / English. I had a young Muslim lady. I had a young Sikh lady. I had a Muslim gentleman from Pakistan. I had a lady from Spain and a guy from Portugal. And it was like the United Nations. But we got on famously. And the organizer, we shared a big office, open spaced office with everyone else. But everyone used to say how jealous they were because we all used to get on and get the work done. We used to have a bit of fun as well, but we all got on well, and that's the thing. We all get on well. We understand each other's cultures. We understand where we're coming from, but we also understand where we need to get to as well.
I love that, Finn. It's those differences, that diversity in the team, and embracing those and becoming inclusive that really creates the magic, isn't it? And all those different strengths that each of those different team members you talk about there that they bring makes the whole much stronger than the individual parts. It's fantastic.
It is exactly that. Exactly that. And you know, when I was very fortunate to be involved in a startup airline in Kuwait many years ago, and that had me flying to all over the Middle East, Beirut, Libya, Syria, Dubai, but all around the Middle East, Europe. But it was fascinating. I loved it because one thing that, again, looking back to it sounds like my father's in the forefront of who I am, but why wouldn't he be?
Well, why wouldn't he be? Absolutely right.
But yeah, he had this fascination for people, which is why I became a coach and, you know, psychotherapist, because I've got a fascination with people. And it's taking people at face value for what they are, what they believe, because let's face it, everything that we do most of the time now is learned behavior from when we were younger. So having a wonderful upbringing, which allowed me to have that outlook, allowed me to travel around the Middle East and meet all these wonderful people. I mean, for instance, one day I was in Cairo, then jumped on the flight that afternoon, went back to Kuwait. In the evening, I got on a flight out to Damascus. And you're meeting all these different people, but having that awareness that people are what they are, and you just have to embrace that, understand it, and work with their model of the world, works wonders. And that's, again, which another sign that I bring to my leadership is that people do things for their reasons. So understanding that as well, that no one really does anything out of malice. It's just they do things differently, and understanding that. So bringing that diversity inclusion in, again, is very important for me in my leadership style.
Yeah, I love that. And, understanding that people do bring their own lens to the world. They just do. We all see things differently, and I certainly have experience of great influence from my parents in my leadership, who bring a different perspective to me, or lens, if you like, but have massively influenced how I show up today as a leader. So I really do understand and embrace that myself, because again, it's those differences. When I'm working through a problem, for example, at work, I love it when the team comes together and we're all bringing different ideas, because there's no point in me just turning up in the room and saying, right, we're going to do this and this is why, and that's it, and there's no discussion. That's really not helpful. One, they're going to feel excluded, and two, we're probably not going to get to the best solution, because that's only my one brain, and I'm very, very aware that it's not the best brain in the world. And with your help, or the rest of the team's help, it becomes a much, much better solution that's much more thoroughly thought through, has lots of different scenarios around it, and that we reach the right decision or solution for the team. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and it's strong as well, because everyone's in the mix. Everyone has a part of that, and that just builds the strength in the team as well. Really does. So couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. But it's funny, Paul. during the latter part of the career, probably the last sort of 10, 15 years, it seemed to be that everyone has to go on a management course. You know, you're successful, but let's make you more successful. You know, we got this great management course. Okay, fine, great. Okay, always something to learn. But you know what I found, and I've been on a few now, and all beneficial. You always take something away from them, but how samey they all are. You know, it's all kind of buzzwords and things like team dynamics and all these different other sort of words that come out now. And what I found out over all the courses, they're all taught by different people, by different companies, but they're all kind of the same. No one's sort of embracing something different. No one's bringing something new to the table. And I'd push back. And sometimes, you know, there can be a little bit contrived, but can I be a little bit disruptive? Hell no. But anyway, when sometimes, you know, you have to stand up and be counted. Again, my father's influence, you have to do that. You have to stand up and sort of say, well, look, can I challenge and push back a little bit? But no one really likes that. And that's another part of where I think is missing, because you talk to, I don't know, team dynamics and team this and team that. I'm really not quite sure what it all means. But you're working with a team, you're working with individuals. And you know, you have to engage every member of that team, and they don't teach you how to do that. They don't teach you how to challenge properly, how to give proper feedback. Well, they do, but it's not the proper feedback. It's right. You sit down and you've got these 10 questions, and you do this matrix, and you do through, and you think, well,
and it's the sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah, but I don't do it that way. Oh, well, that's why we want you to do it. But I don't do it that way. Yeah, but we want you to do it that way. Why? Well, because it's the way we do things. Okay, but you know, Winston Churchill once said, you know, if fan of Winston Churchill or not, but he was great, and he said, rules and regulations are written by idiots for idiots that can't think for themselves. And one of the things I inspire in all my teams is start thinking for yourself. Bring something new. It could be something that we've never thought of before. So never be frightened to put your hand up and say something. No one's going to ridicule. And if someone laughs, it's simply the fact that, ignorance is bliss. But always stand up, put your hand up, and let's see where we go with it. And challenge the status quo. Very important. Always challenge the status quo. Things don't have to be as they are. Have a say. Which is great, but a lot of these courses don't teach that, and I think it's a shame, because we need to sometimes go back to those old-fashioned values. Spend a day with an army drill sergeant or something, but you know, just go back to those old-fashioned values. Let's see leadership for what it is, and that's leading from the front, giving direction, allowing people to make mistakes as well, because that's how they learn, and that's how we all learn, and embrace the whole journey. Because if you don't, then okay, we'll just talk about team dynamics and buzzwords and, you know, the things that are out there these days, but not the basics. And it's the basics, I think, that are missing these days.
Yeah, you are preaching to the converted here, Finn. I mean, you know, what I think I'm hearing in there as well is allowing that human element to come through. You know, that we're not all a bunch of cookie cutter robots that all should be doing things in the same way at the same time to get the same result. You know, I forget who says this, but it's keep putting the same input in and keep getting the same results and wondering why. It's something like that. You know the quote I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, let's put in some different ingredients. Let's allow that creativity to develop and flourish, because actually what we're going to get out as a result of that is something truly special. And it sounds to me like the teams that you've had the pleasure of leading in the past have been a very lucky team indeed.
Yeah, I would say,
it's a compliment, Finn.
Well, all right, yeah, thanks. But you know what? That's I get what you're saying. Thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it. But it's a team effort, and it has to be that team
It
effort.
is.
And if it's not that team effort, then just pack up and go home, because everyone's got to have that say. Everyone's got to have. It's not necessarily everyone's got to feel special, but everyone's got to be heard. Everyone needs to feel that they're contributing, no matter how small. And that's what makes a successful team. That's what's made me and the organisations I've worked for very successful, is the fact that it's a collaboration between everyone in that team. And it sounds fluffy, and people, oh yeah, well, but that's how it is. It's the basics. Forgetting all the other things that are going on now. It's just get the basics right, and everything else falls into place.
Yeah, and it's allowing everybody to have their voice around the virtual table, as we are now, given that lots of us are working virtually, but whether it's physical or virtual, being able to share their ideas, and in true coaching style, creating that psychologically safe space where they feel safe to do that without fear of consequence. I've been in teams in the past where you daren't speak up or say anything, because as a result of, you may well find yourself in a situation that you really didn't want to be in. And that's no way to run a team and increase productivity, all be working towards the same goal and purpose. It's just crushing spirit, for one, crushing creativity, crushing any kind of leadership and team collaboration. So, you sort of briefly mentioned in passing those good and bad experiences you've had of leadership. There are some amazing examples of leadership out there, and you've shared some of those today. There are some truly diabolical ones out there as well, that I'm sure you've experienced as much as I have over the many, many years. We won't mention how many, of my experience in the corporate world. And then, and the downright ugly ones that you just want to forget ever happened and never repeat.
Yeah.
And I would argue that whilst they're painful at the time, they've massively contributed to who I am and who I choose to show up as a leader today as well.
Definitely. I've worked with some remarkable people, which also, it's helped my dad lay the foundations. But if it wasn't working with some really, really wonderful people, again, I wouldn't be where, or wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today. And it's those people. Do you know what, Paul? When I look back, it's those people who would do things slightly differently, who would think outside the box, who would talk differently, would dismiss the usual boardroom banter or talk. And there's one particular, I won't mention his name, but he was a very senior leader for a European airline, and he came to work with us for a while. Amazing guy, that he can remember everything from one meeting to the next. He was very direct. Now, he wouldn't take any of this buzzwordy rubbish that goes around, meeting tables. He would stop. He actually put his hand up one particular time with our finance director, and told him that if he didn't speak the Queen's English, he could leave. I mean, this guy's English as you and I. But he was right. He was talking all these facts and figures and things which I was kind of trying to get my head around. And this guy said, I don't understand what you're talking about. Just tell me what it is. Don't just tell me what it is, because if I don't understand it, who else is understand? Because no one would put their hand up.
Yeah.
And then after that meeting, he said, right, if anything is not clear, stop, put your hand up. Let's just go back. Let's make everything clear, because otherwise we're not going to get anywhere. And he was a great man. He was bless him. He passed away of cancer in the end, but he was a great man. Memory like an elephant, incredible. But he was great in the fact he didn't take any rubbish. Tell me as it is. Let's find a way forward next. And that was it. None of this toing and froing and arguing and shall we, shan't we, do this, do that, and all this buzzy stuff.
And all the political games that go with it is how I'd phrase it.
And all the political games exactly that go with it. Wonderful guy. So I learned so much from him over the 2 years I was underneath him. So he was great man, bless him. But you're right. There are some great people out there, but unfortunately, there's some other people who shout louder that unfortunately get heard above those that get on with it and do a cracking job, unfortunately. But that's life, I think they call it. So,
well, I think what we can do as authentic leaders is make sure that we're not supporting that kind of leadership, and that we're advocating and giving the gift of truly great leadership to all of those who want to listen, because there'll be those that don't, and support them in whatever way we can. And it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your story to date, Finn, and I'm really, really excited that we've got you for another 2 episodes over the next couple of weeks as well. So next week we're going to be chatting through your take on game and leadership, and then the following week we'll be digging into your pivotal moments. There's so much more I could have asked you and chatted through today, but we're going to save some of this for our next 2 episodes. So for now, thank you so much, Finn, and we'll see you back next week.
Yep, I shall look forward to it. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity, Paula. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Today, we listened to the leadership journey of our guest and how they got to be where they are today. Now, in the chats, we talked about all sorts of different things, and there are lots of bits and pieces in there that are going to mean something different to each and every one of you. You will all have your own unique takeaways, so I encourage you to do a bit of reflection now and see what this might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I look forward to seeing you on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders, next week. Bye for now.